नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत वेदांत शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे सर्वशास्त्रार्थ पीयूष सर्ववेदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाढ्य सर्वलौकिक दृक्प्रद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वांतोदितादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्षक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्या श्री कृष्ण नमोस्तुते मदेक बंधु मत्संगी मद्गुरो मन्महाधनम निस्तारक मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमस्तुते साधु साधुतादाय नदनी चोच्चताकर हाणवंश कदाचिन्मां प्रेम्णा हृत्कण्ठयो स्फुर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय okay uh, text point 1.27 to the end of this chapter 27 द्वे जानूनि सुतलं विश्वमूर्तेर ऊरुद्वयं वितलं चातलं च महीतलं तज्जघनं महीपते नभस्थलं नाभिस्सरो गृह्णन्ति. The knees of the universal form are the planetary system of the name Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atala planetary systems. The hips are Mahitala, and outer space is the depression of his navel. उरस्थलं ज्योतिरनीकमस्य ग्रीवामहर वदनं वै जनोस्य अपोराटीं दुरादिपुंसः सत्यं तु शीर्षाणि सहस्रशीर्ष्णः. The chest of the original personality of the gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is the Mahar planetary planets. His mouth is the Janus planets, and his forehead is the Tapas planetary system. The topmost planetary system, known as Satyaloka, is the head of him who has 1,000 heads. The luminary planetary system is Swarga. Jyotiranigam Jyotisham Samoham Swargaha. Swargam. The effulgent luminary planets, like the sun and the moon, are situated almost in the midpoint of the universe, and as such, they are to be known as the chest of the original form of the Lord. And above the luminary planets, called also the heavenly places of the universal directorate demigods, are the Mahar, Janus, and Tapas planetary systems. And above all, the Satyaloka planetary system, where the chief directors of the modes of material nature reside, namely Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. This Vishnu is known as the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, and he acts as a super soul in every living being. There are innumerable universes floating on the causal ocean, and in each of them, the representation of the Virat form of the Lord is there, along with the innumerable suns, moons, heavenly demigods, Brahmas, Vishnus, and Shivas, all of them situated in one part of the inconceivable potency of Lord Krishna, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.42. Indradayo Bahavaha Rusrah कर्णौ दिशः श्रोत्रम् अमुष्य शब्दः नासत्यदस्रौ परमस्य नासे घ्राणस्य गंधो मुखमग्निरिद्धः. His arms are the demigods, headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides are his ears, and physical sound is his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the two Ashwini Kumaras, and material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is the blazing fire. Usra, Deva, Tejomaya Shariratpate Bahava Idyahu. They are considered, the demigods headed by Indra are considered to be his arms because they're filled, because their bodies are filled with prowess, tejas. What is Indra then? That's अत्र व्यष्टिसमष्टिविराजयोः यद्यपि तुल्य एव अध्यात्मादिविभागः तदपि समष्टिविराडयं हिरण्यगर्भ उपासकैर्योगिभिः परमेश्वरत्वेन उपास्य इति परमेश्वरस्य इन्द्रियेभ्य एव विराजः विषया भवन्ति. Okay. So even though the individual Virat and the collective Virat are equally having the divisions of Adhyatmika, Adhidaivika, Adhibhautika, still this collective Virat is the object of worship of uh, those who meditate on Hiranyagarbha, those yogis who meditate on Hiranyagarbha. They have to meditate on Hiranyagarbha or this Samashti Virat, collective Virat, as the Supreme Lord. Therefore, uh, you have various sense objects for this Virat, which are connected to the senses of the Supreme Lord. तदीय इंद्रियाधिष्ठानेभ्यः तु इंद्रियाणि इंद्रियाधिष्ठायः देवताश्च स्युरिति कार्यकारणयोर अभेद उपचारात् ऐक्येन. And then the senses have their locations. They also have their, so you have this, the locations of the senses, they're actually different from the senses. And then you have the presiding deities of the senses. But all of them are here considered to be one. They're dealt with as if they're one. दिक् शब्दादिभिः समष्टि विराजः अस्य परमेश्वरत्वेन ध्येयत्वात्. Because this collective Virat Purusha is meant to be meditated upon as a Supreme Lord in terms of direction, sound, and so on. They are imagined to be the ears, speech, and so on. Or hearing and so on. So the idea is that the commentators say this. Asya karnau shrotrasya adhishtanam. Here, the ears are the location of the hearing sense organ. Shabdaha asmadadi shrotra vishayaha. And sound itself is the sense object of hearing. So you have the sense of hearing, you have the location of the sense of hearing, and you have the object of the sense of hearing. Evam eva sarvatra vyavastha. This is the arrangement for all the senses. The description of the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead made in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is further explained here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The description in the Bhagavad Gita 11.30 runs as follows. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people from all sides with your flaming mouths, covering all the universe with your effulgence. You are manifest with terrible scorching rays. In that way, Srimad Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study for the student of the Bhagavad Gita. Both of them are the signs of Krishna, the absolute truth, and so they are interdependent. The conception of the Virat Purusha, or the gigantic form of the Supreme Lord, is said to include all the dominating demigods as well as the dominated living beings. Even the minutest part of a living being is controlled by the empowered agency of the Lord. Since the demigods are included in the gigantic form of the Lord, worship of the Lord, either in his gigantic material conception or in his eternal transcendental form as Lord Sri Krishna, also appeases the demigods. And all the other parts and parcels, as much as watering the root of a tree distributes energy to all of the tree's other parts. Consequently, for a materialist also, worship of the universal gigantic form of the Lord leads him to the right path. One need not risk being misled by approaching many demigods for fulfillment of different desires. The real entity is the Lord himself, and all others are imaginary, for everything is included in him only. Imaginary because they are temporary. 13. Gyaurakshiणी cha chakshur rabhut patanga Pakshmani Vishno Rahani Ubhecha Tadbhru Vijrimbah Paramesthitishnyam Aposyatalu Raseva Jihva. So, to common sense, the description in this verse appears to be somewhat contradictory because sometimes the sun is described as eyeborn, and here the outer space sphere is so described. But there is no room for common sense in the injunctions of the Shastras. This is a point developed from Karmasandharva. तदेव मत्र युक्तिर्न संधेया किंतु उपासनार्थम शास्त्र आज्ञा एव कारणम. We must accept the description of the Shastras and concentrate more on the form of the Virat Rupa than on common sense. Common sense is always imperfect, whereas the description in the Shastras is always perfect and complete. If there is any incongruity, it's due to our imperfection, not the Shastras. That is the method of approaching Vedic wisdom. Okay, 31. छंदांसि अनंतस्य शिरो गृह्णन्ति दंश्रायम स्नेह कलादुजानी आसो जनोन्माद करीचमाया दुरंत सर्गो यद्दपांग मोक्ष. They say that the Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord. Shiraha, head. And his jaws of teeth are Yama, god of death, who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most alluring, illusory material energy is his smile. This great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance over us. बहुरूपत्वाद दंष्ट्रार्यमेन्दु इत्यादि. Because he has different forms, there are different comparisons. प्रतिभा अपेक्षया अंगानि भूव आदीनि स्वरूपतः तदाश्रितानि तज्जानि बहु अंगत्वं बहुत्वतः इति ब्रह्मतर्के. According to Brahmatarka, the different parts of his body are in comparison to uh, the external form of the Lord. And these different parts of the body are earth and so on. In reality, they have taken shelter of him. They're also born from different parts of his body. Therefore, he is described in many ways. Sneha Kala, the art of affection, refers to the little amount of sneha, affection for one's son and so on. The great ocean of material creation refers to the unbounded material existence. According to the Vedic assertion, this material creation is the result of the Lord's casting a glance over the material energy, which is described herein as the most alluring illusory energy. The conditioned souls, allured by such materialism, should know that the temporary material creation is simply an imitation of the reality, and that those who are captivated by such alluring glances of the Lord are put under the direction of the controller of the sinners, called Yamaraj. The Lord smiles affectionately, displaying his teeth. The intelligent person who can grasp these truths about the Lord becomes a soul fully surrendered unto him. 32. Vrido taraushto dharae valobho dharmastano dharma pathosya prishtham kastasya medhram vishnau cha mitro kukshis samudra girayosti sankha. Modesty is the upper portion of his lips, anchoring is his chin. Religion is the breast of the Lord, and religion is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all living beings in the material world, is his genitals, and the Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. The ocean is his waist, and the hills and mountains are the stacks of his bones. The Supreme Lord is not impersonal, as misconceived by less intelligent thinkers. Rather, he is a supreme person as confirmed in all authentic Vedic literatures. But his personality is different from what we can conceive. It is stated here that Brahmaji acts as his genitals, and that the Mitravaranas are his two testicles. This means that as a person, he is complete with all bodily organs, but they are of different types with different potencies. When the Lord is described as impersonal, therefore, it should be understood that his personality is not exactly the type of personality found within our imperfect speculation. One can, however, worship the Lord even by seeing the hills and mountains, or the ocean and the sky as different parts and parcels of the gigantic body of the Lord, the Virat Purusha. The Virat Rupa is exhibited by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. This is a challenge to the unbelievers. Nadyosya nadyo tanu ruhani mahi ruha vishvat tano nrpendra ananta viryashvasitam matarishva gatir vayah karma guna pravaha. O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. Guna pravaha. Praninam samsara, karma, asya krida. Guna Pravaha means the flow of the modes, literally, which refer to the reactions of the modes. And that refers to the material existence of the living creatures. So that activity, the movement of the living entities in material existence, that is his sport. Means it's a very easy activity for him. The personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive, as is poorly thought by some schools. He moves with the progress of time, and therefore he knows all about the past and future, along with his present activities. There is nothing unknown to him. The conditioned souls are driven by the reactions of the modes of material nature, which are the activities of the Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.12, the modes of nature act under his direction only, and as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind the activities is the supervision of the Lord, and thus the Lord is never inactive, as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do personally, as is always the case with superiors, but everything is done by his direction. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In the Brahma Samhita 5.48, it is said that all the universes and heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universes and the planets within the universes exist is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchallengeable Virat Purusha. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of Godhead without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the Supreme Truth are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. 34. ईशस्य केशान् विदुरम्बुवाहान् वासस्तु सन्ध्यां कुर्वर्य पुम्ना अव्यक्तमाहुर्हृदयं मनश्च सच्चन्द्रमा सर्वविकारकोशः. O best amongst the Kurus, the clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The terminations of days or nights are his dress. And the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. Achyutaram.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, I am unable to understand what exactly is the problem with these gross materialists or non-believers, that they cannot accept Lord's personality and then they have to be told about his Virat Purusha or impersonal feature. Like, why cannot they accept Lord's personal form?
Because throughout the world, when you say God is a person, the understanding that they have is you're saying God is a person like them. He has a form like them. He has features like them, like everyone. So therefore, they're not able to accept it because God is all powerful. This much is clear to everyone. Sarveshwara, the controller of everyone, has to be all powerful. And how can somebody with a limited form possess all powers? So therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam begins by, first of all, talking about the Virat Purusha, and then upgrading one to the point of the spiritual Paramatma, and then to bring everyone to the point of Bhagavan, who's fully spiritual.
But if they are told directly that, like Anganiyasya Sakalendriya, verses like this, will they not be convinced?
It is not easy to understand transcendental personality. It is not easy to grasp it. That Krishna apparently has a form with limited measurable dimensions, apparently. But at the same time, he is unlimited. It's all pervasive. That can only be understood from the scripture. So it is not as easy as we think. Transcendental personalism is a challenge for a materialistic mind. Okay, let's move on. It's five. विज्ञान शक्तिं महिमा मनन्ति सर्वात्मनोऽन्तः करणं गिरित्रम् अश्वाश्वतर्युष्टगजानकानि सर्वे मृगाः पश्यवश्रोणि देशे. The principle of matter, Mahatattva, is the consciousness of the omnipresent Lord, as asserted by the experts, and Rudradeva is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and wild animals and all quadrupeds. Quadruped means four-legged animal. Are situated in the belt zone of the Lord. Six. Vayamsi tadvya karanam vichitram manurmanisha manujo nivasa gandharva vidyadhara taranapsarah swarasmritir asura nikavirya. Varieties of birds are indications of his masterful artistic sense. Manu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence, and humanity is his resident. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and angels all represent his musical rhythm, and the demoniac soldiers are representations of his wonderful prowess. Tadvyakaranam, vocables. Nama Rupe Vyakaravadiniti Shutyuktam Shilpanaipunyam. It refers to the expertise in crafting, the sense of craftsmanship that can be understood from the birds. That's the statement. Yena Shuklikrita Hamsa, Sukascha Haritikrita, Mayuras Chitrita Yena, Sate Vrittim Vidhasyati. He, by whom the swans are made white, the parrots are made green, and the peacocks are made multicolored, will give you the capacity, the function. Here, Manu refers to Swayambhuva Manu. Humanity is his residence. Purushatvecha avistaratma. There's a statement in the Shruti. No, Purushatvecha avistaramatma. He himself has spread himself amongst mankind. That's a variant reading. Variant reading for what? For the last line. Swarasmritar Asaranika Virya. Okay, it also appears as Swaraha space Smritir short E. Asuranika Virya. In which case, the meaning will be the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, Apsaras. They represent his musical rhythm, and the best of the Asuric the best of the soldiers amongst the Asuras refers to Prahlad Maharaj. He represents memory. Oh, Asuranika Varyaha instead of Viryaha. That is the reading adopted by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur actually. The aesthetic sense of the Lord is manifested in the artistic, colorful creation of varieties of birds like the peacock, parrot, and cuckoo. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas and Vidyadharas can sing wonderfully and can entice even the minds of the heavenly demigods. Their musical rhythm represents the musical sense of the Lord. How then can he be impersonal? His musical taste, artistic sense, and standard intelligence, which is never fallible, are different signs of his supreme personality. The Manu Samhita is a standard law book for humanity, and every human being is advised to follow this great book of social knowledge. Human society is the residential quarters for the Lord. This means that the human life is meant for God realization and association with God. This life is a chance for the conditioned soul to eternal God consciousness and thus fulfill the mission of life. Maharaj Prahlad is the right type of representative of the Lord in the family of Asuras. None of the living beings is away from the Lord's gigantic body. Each and every one has a particular duty in relation to the supreme body. Disruption in the matter of discharging the specific duty assigned to each and every living being is a cause of disharmony between one living being and another. But when the relation is re-established in relation with the Supreme Lord, there is complete unity between all living beings, even up to the limit of the wild animals and human society. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed this living unity in the jungle of Madhya Pradesh, where even the tigers, elephants, and many other ferocious animals perfectly cooperated in glorifying the Supreme Lord. That is the way to peace and amity all over the world. 7. Brahmananam Kshatra Bhujo Mahatma Vidur Rangrishta Krishna Varna Nanabhida Bhijya Ganopapanno Dravyatmaka Karma Pitana Yoga. The Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmanas. His arms are the Kshatriyas. His thighs are the Vaishyas. And the Shudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him. And it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. Avita Bija Ganot Obapanna. This refers to different demigods, such as the Vasuls, the Rudras, and so on. Vitana Yoga, Yajya Prayogastasya Karma Karyam Avashyam Krityam. Monotheism is practically suggested here. Offering sacrifices to many demigods under different names is mentioned in the Vedic literatures. But the suggestion made in this verse is that all those varieties of demigods are included in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are only the parts and parcels of the original whole. Similarly, the divisions of the orders of human society, namely the Brahmanas, the intelligent class, the Kshatriyas, the administrators, the Vaishyas, the mercantile community, and the Shudras, the laborer class, are all included in the body of the Supreme. As such, sacrifice by every one of them is in terms of pleasing the Supreme by feasible goods is recommended. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with clarified butter and grains, but with the progress of time, human society has produced varieties of goods by transforming materials supplied by God's material nature. Human society, therefore, italics or emphasis, must learn to offer sacrifices, not only with clarified butter, but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory, and that will bring about perfection in human society. End of emphasis. The intelligent class of men or Brahmanas may give direction for such sacrifices in consultation with the previous acharyas. The administrators may give all facility to perform such sacrifices. The Vaishya class or mercantile community who produce such goods may offer them for sacrifice, and the Shudra class may offer their manual labor for the successful termination of such sacrifice. Thus, by the cooperation of all classes of human beings, the sacrifice recommended in this age, namely the sacrifice of congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, may be executed for the common welfare of all the people of the world. Notice that for Sankirtana Yagya also, when Prabhupada says that the four classes, they need to be involved. They have their respective duties to perform. The Brahmanas have to give direction, the Kshatriyas have to give facilities, the Vaishyas have to offer different goods for the sacrifice to happen. The Shudra should offer their manual labor so that the sacrifice is successfully terminated. In this way, Sankirtana Yagya will involve people of all different gunas and karmas. This Virat Rupa is imaginary. It is not real. Then why is it with hands, chest, etc.? It is imaginary in the sense that it is just this material world. It is this universe. And the universe is not actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a method of meditation. Therefore, Prabhupada keeps on saying it's imaginary. Because we should not think that this is a real form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual world. What is manufacturing goods? All the kind of items that they make, all kinds of items that people make. But we don't have Kshatriyas. We have, in a raw form, intellectuals exist. In every country, you have intellectuals, administrators, business professionals, and you have the labor class. This exists. So what has to be done is the intellectuals should accept the guna and karma of the Brahmanas mentioned in the scripture. The administrators must accept the guna and karma of the Kshatriyas. Similarly, the business professionals should accept the guna and karma of the Vaishyas as taught in the scripture. And the general labor class should accept the guna and karma of the Shudras in the scripture. This is what they're supposed to do. And since they find it very, very difficult to do, they should at least try to increase the chanting. And then they'll become capable. All of us will become capable. 38. Iyanasa Vishwara Vigrahasya Yassannivesha Khatito Mayate Sandharyatesmin Vapushistha Vishte Manaswa Bhutya Nayatosti Kinchit. I've just explained to you the gross material, gigantic conception of the personality of God. One who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on this form of the Lord because there's nothing more than this in the material world. Ayamarthaha. This is the import of this section. Manohi swa chanchalya vashad yatra yatra bhramati tatra tatra eva bhagavata idam amukam angam iti swabuddhya vicharayet. The mind, because of its own flickering nature, it wanders here and there. Wherever it wanders, using one's intelligence, one should deliberate that this particular part of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Evam cha manasaha swabhavikaha sarveva vishayaha bhagavad angani eva iti sarvamapi chintanam bhagavad chintanam vena paryavasyet. Similarly, natural thoughts of the mind, the objects of the thinking of the mind, which are natural to it, all of them should be um, deliberated, to be deliberated as the different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in that way, one's very thinking culminates in thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. तथा स्पर्धा avagya आदेह भावाः नैव उत्पद्येरन्. In this way, the attitudes of um, competitiveness, insult, and so on, they will not come up. स्पर्धादि विषयानां मनुष्य गंधर्वादीनाम अपि भगवत अंगभूतत्वेन ध्येयत्वादेवेति. Because the objects of such competition and so on are the human beings, Gandharvas, and so on. But even they are meant to be meditated upon as parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.10, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has verily explained that the material nature is only an order-carrying agent of His. He is one of the different potencies of the Lord, and she acts under His direction only. As the Supreme Transcendental Lord, He simply casts a glance over the material principle, and thus the agitation of matter begins, and the resultant actions are manifested one after another by 6 kinds of gradual differentiations. All material creation is moving in that way, and thus it appears and disappears in due course. Less intelligent persons with a poor fund of knowledge cannot accommodate the thought of this inconceivable potency of the Lord Sri Krishna, by which He appears just like a human being. 9.11. His appearance in the material world as one of us is also His causeless mercy upon the fallen souls. He is transcendental to all material conceptions, but by His unbounded mercy upon His pure devotees, He comes down and manifests Himself as the personality of Godhead. Materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engrossed with the atomic energy and the gigantic situation of the universal form, and they offer respect more seriously to the external phenomenal feature of material manifestations than to the nominal principle of spiritual existence. Phenomenal means something which is manifest to our senses. Nominal means that which is beyond that. The transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activities. And it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized and all-pervasive. Because the materialistic philosophers and scientists think of everything in terms of their own experience. Because they are unable to accept the personal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat feature of His transcendental form, and herein Srila Shukadeva Goswami has vividly described this form of the Lord. He concludes that there is nothing beyond this gigantic feature of the Lord. None of the materialistic thoughtful men can go beyond this conception of the gigantic form. That is because whatever we can think of is included within this Virat meditation. The minds of the materialistic men are flickering and constantly changing from one aspect to another. Therefore, one is advised to think of the Lord by thinking of any part of His gigantic body, and by one's intelligence only one can think of Him in any manifestation of the material world: the forest, the hill, the ocean, the man, the animal, the bird, the demigod, the bird, the beast, or anything else. Each and every item of the material manifestation entails a part of the body of the gigantic form, and thus the flickering mind can be fixed in the Lord only and nothing else. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demoniac challenge of godlessness and bring about gradual development of the devotional service of the Lord. Everything being a part and parcel of the complete whole, the neophyte student will gradually realize the hymns of the Ishopanishad, which state that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. This sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. Thus one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things are parts and parcels of the Supreme Body. Actually, in Vedic civilization, we are trained, one used to be trained in this manner, and to some extent we notice some remnants of that even now. For instance, if you touch something with your feet, then you are immediately supposed to offer respect to it, at least in the mind, if not by touching it. 39. स सर्वधी वृत्त्यनुभूत सर्व आत्मा यथा स्वप्न जनेक्षितैकः तम सत्यमानंद निधिम भजेत नान्यत्र सज्जेत यथा आत्मपातः. One should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him, the only all blissful absolute truth. Otherwise, one will be misled and will cause his own degradation. Tadevam chittasthairyaartham virat deha jiveshwaranam abhedena upasanam tam अत्र तु देहजीवाौ ईश्वरे प्रविलाप्य स एव ध्येय इति निर्धारयति स एव. Now, having taught the form of meditation of considering the universe, the gigantic universe, or the Virat Purusha. Actually, the Virat Purusha is Hiranyagarbha Brahma. It's one form of Brahma, as well as his body. That body is this universe, Brahmanda, as well as the jivas, as well as the Supreme Lord inside the jiva. So, this form of meditation involves considering all of them to be one. And that is for the purpose of steadying the chitta, the mind. Having done that, now it is pointed out, one should, literally, I'm just literally translating it, one should merge the body and the jivatmas in the Lord. And one should meditate on him alone. That is stated in the current verse. Swapna Jananam Ikshita, the seer of those who create dreams. This means Swapnehi Kadachit, sometimes in a dream. Bahun Dehan Prakalpya Jivaha Tattad Indriya Sarvam Pashyati. The living entity conceives of many different bodies and simultaneously sees through all of the senses of those bodies. This is like that. Ishvara Setu, but Ishvara Vidya Shaktitvam Nabandha is not bound to material existence because he possesses the potency of Vidya, knowledge. Tadevam Virat Dharanam Upma. So he has taught the dharana, the form of meditation, on Virat. Tat apavadena api tam purvoktam bhakti-vaibhava. So he has taught that as a general process. Utsarga vidhi. It's a general process, general regulation. Now he teaches that method of bhakti that he had referred to earlier as an exception to this. Yes, sarvathi tyanuk tatvat sa tam satyam bhajeta iti yogitam yasya kartavya. Ayam evatha. तथा भूत विराट धारणा सिद्ध योगी विरांगताभिः सर्वाभिः धीवृत्तिभिः ज्ञानेन्द्रिये अनुभूतं सर्वं विराट गतं येन तथा भूत सन् तं सत्यम आनंद नित्यम विराट अंतर्यामिनं श्री नारायणमेव भजे. So one's mental faculties, the Gyanendriyas, all of them might be experiencing all these different items that were mentioned in this Virat meditation. for a yogi who has perfected this meditation on Virat. But then he should um, serve the truth, the source of all bliss, the super soul of this Virat, which is Sri Narayana. अन्यत्र विराट गते तद धारणा अवांतर फले च कुत्रापि न सज्जते यतः सज्जमानात् आत्मपात संसार एव स्यात्. And one should not get caught up with the interim benefits caused by meditating on different parts of this Virat form. Because when we get uh, attached to these interim benefits, then we will fall down. We will cause our own degradation, which means we will experience matter. We will undergo material experience. We'll have to undergo the repetition of birth and rebirth. तस्य स्वरूपानुभूतौ दृष्टान्तः आत्मस्वप्नद्रष्टा जीवो यथा स्वप्नगतानां सर्वेषां जनानां तदुपलक्षितानां वस्तूनां च एक एव ईक्षिता भवति इति. Just as a single soul sees various items of everyone in a dream, so like that. In this regard, he quotes स ऐक्ष्यत स्वाभाविकी ज्ञान बलक्रिया च संध्य सृष्टिराहति आया मात्रम तो कार्त्स्येन अनभिव्यक्त स्वरूपत्वात्. These are all different statements. The first two are statements from Upanishads, the last two are statements from the Vedanta Sutra. So from this, it is understood that the Supreme Lord himself is the creator of the dream experience. And from that, we understand that he is distinct from the living entities and everything that is found within matter. And therefore, he's been described as Satyam and Ananda Nidhim, as the supreme object of human attainment. Nano evam, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur analyzes in a slightly different way. Nano evam Bhagavad Dharana Abhyasasya Anushangika api no Anushangikani फलानि भोगैश्वर्यादीनि अवश्यम उत्पद्यन्ते एव. When one engages in such dharana, the practice of such dharana, the side benefits such as sense enjoyment, material opulences, and so on will certainly come about. Yogitani swatah praptani upabhunjita nava. So should that yogi enjoy all of them that have now naturally come to him or not? Adye yoga shaithalya prasanga. If he were to accept the first option, then he will come across a situation where his yogic practice will become slackened. And we know that from the third canto. Satyam, that is true. Dvitiye, upasthita bhoga tyagasya dushkaratvam iti. The second option is very difficult to execute. It is very difficult to give up objects which have come by themselves. Vivekena eva sarvam sukharam iti viveka prakaram darshayati. But then, through intelligent discrimination, everything becomes easy. So then, Sukadeva Goswami, he points out the method of such discrimination here. Sa yogi sarvabhir dhiyam vrittibhihi indriya lakshanabhihi prachina sahasra janma vardinibhihi anubhutameva sarvam देवेन्द्रत्व नरेन्द्रत्वादिकं भोगेश्वर्यादिकं येन सह किं पुनश्चर्वित चर्वणया इति भावः. So the yogi, through his mental faculties or his intellectual faculties characterized by his senses, he is only going to experience what he has already experienced from ancient times in thousands and thousands of lifetimes. Everything, including being the king of the devas or the ruler of human beings and so on, experiencing their delights, their opulences, and so on. So, what is the point in chewing the chewed? That is the implication. Nacha tasyapi sthiratvam, and these opulences and enjoyments, they are not also um, permanent. Iti atra drishtantah, and that's an example here. Atma jivo yatha swapne jananam पात्र मित्र सैन्यादीनां तद् उपलक्षित राज्यादि भोगानां च स्वसृष्टानाम् एकैव ईक्षिता भवेता. Just as the one self, the living entity, jiva, in a dream, he is the experiencer of all the enjoyments that have been created for him in the dream. He sees utensils, he sees friends, he sees armies, and so on. And all of these indicate him possessing a kingdom and other such sources of enjoyment. अतस्तं सत्यं सर्वकाल देशवर्तिनम् आनंदानां निधिं भगवन्तमेव भजेत. Therefore, one should only serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is true. True means the one who exists at all times and at all places, and who is the source of all blisses, all happinesses. Nato anyatra asarvaditvat asatye an anandanidho vishaya sukhe ityartha. One should not become attached to the temporary source of unhappiness, which is just sense enjoyment, which is not all pervasive at all places in time or all places in space. In these words, the process of devotion service is indicated by the great Goswami Srila Shukadev. He tries to impress upon us that instead of diverting our attention to several branches of self-realization, we should concentrate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the supreme object of realization, worship, and devotion. Self-realization is, as it were, offering a fight for eternal life against the material struggle for existence, and therefore, by the illusory grace of the external energy, the yogi or the devotee is faced with many allurements which can entangle a great fighter again in the bondage of material existence. The yogi can attain miraculous successes in material achievements such as anima and lakima, by which one can become more minute than the minutest or lighter than the lightest, or in the ordinary sense, one may achieve material benedictions in the shape of wealth and women. But one is warned against such allurements, because entanglement again in such illusory pleasure means degradation of the self and further imprisonment in the material world. By this warning, one should follow one's vigilant intelligence only. The Supreme Lord is one, and his expansions are various. He is therefore the super soul of everything. When a man sees anything, he must know that his seeing is secondary and the Lord's seeing is primary. One cannot see anything without the Lord's having first seen it. That is the instruction of the Vedas and Upanishads. So whatever we see or do, the super soul of all acts of seeing or doing is the Lord. This theory of simultaneous oneness and difference between the individual soul and the super soul is propounded by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. The Virat Rupa, or the gigantic feature of the Supreme Lord, includes everything materially manifested, and therefore the Virat or gigantic feature of the Lord is the super soul of all living and all non-living entities. But the Virat Rupa is also the manifestation of Narayana or Vishnu. And going further on, one will eventually see that Lord Krishna is the ultimate super soul of everything that be. conclusion is that one should unhesitatingly become a worshipper of Lord Krishna, or for that matter, his plenary expansion, Narayana, and none else. See, the whole idea is that these kinds of practitioners of the yoga system, they may know the theory that Narayana is the super soul and so on, but they haven't realized. In the Vedic process of spirituality, it is a realization that counts, not just understanding what to speak of, just ordinary learning. In the Vedic hymns, it is clearly said that first of all, Narayana cast a glance over matter, and thus there was creation. Before creation, there was neither Brahma nor Shiva, and what to speak of others. But Shankaracharya has definitely accepted this, that Narayana is beyond the material creation, that all others are within the material creation. The whole material creation, therefore, is one with and different from Narayana simultaneously, and this supports the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Being an emanation from the glancing potency of Narayana, the whole material creation is not different from him. But because it is the effect of his external energy, Bhakiranga Maya, it is aloof from the internal potency, Atma Maya, the whole material creation is different from him at the same time. The example given in this verse, very nicely, is that of the dreaming man. The dreaming man creates many things in his dream, and thus he himself becomes an entangled seer of the dream and is also affected by the consequences. This material creation is also exactly a dream-like creation of the Lord, but he, being the transcendental super soul, is neither entangled nor affected by the reactions of such a dream-like creation. He is always in his transcendental position, but essentially he is everything and nothing is apart from him. As a part of him, one should therefore concentrate on him only without deviation. Otherwise, one is sure to be overcome by the potencies of the material creation, one after another. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.7 as follows. Sarvabhutani Kaunteya Prakratim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshaye Purastani Kalpadu Visrajamyaham. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature. And at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. Human life, however, is an opportunity to get out of this repetition of creation and annihilation. It's a means whereby one may escape the Lord's external potency and enter into his internal potency. Okay, I'll stop with this. Vaishnaveभ्यो